Good evening, folks, and welcome to another edition of An Hour with Bob. And guess what? We're ready for another snowstorm. Well, I hope you're ready because we're going to get another snowstorm. This is like the third, is it the third in 2 weeks or fourth? Fourth in 2.5 weeks snowstorms. But as I've told everybody that whines and cries about the snowstorms, we still, in New England, have the best weather in the country, I believe, and I'll tell you why. We don't have fires, we don't have earthquakes, we don't have tornadoes, we don't have mudslides, and we don't have avalanches. We don't have catastrophic things that happen. We have, so what? We dig out from 6, 8 inches, 10 inches of snow, and what the last big snowstorm we had was February 6, 1978, right? And I remember it well. And actually, I had a lot of fun during that 5 days of the blizzard of '78. But we're in for another snowstorm. This will air the day after the fourth snowstorm in 2.5 or 3 weeks. With me tonight is an old friend, been around a long time, a Pawtucket guy, as I am, and we talked a little bit about Pawtucket. And Joe Fleming's his name, and he's been with Channel 12 doing polling, political polling for decades, and we're going to find out right now. Joe Fleming, how you doing?
Good, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you.
Good seeing you.
I can't believe how long you've been doing polling and how long you've been doing polling for Channel 12. Share it with us.
Well, we started doing some work for Channel 12 back in 1984.
That's
and
amazing.
It just took off, and we've been doing polling for Channel 12 since '84, and I also do the political analyst now for the last number of years. So,
I remember working with you in the election for Kinch.
1981. Yep.
That's crazy.
Helped get Mayor Kinch elected.
Yep.
It was a fun time, fun campaign.
That was a good campaign.
It was great.
It was a lot of fun. That was as a lot of campaigns are.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Had a great candidate up there working really hard, and he ran against a very strong person, the acting mayor, Bill Hardy, another fine gentleman.
Right.
Both of them were very good
Who
friends.
was the head of the Democratic Party in the city of Pawtucket at the time,
Yes,
was he not?
Yes, he was. But both ran a good campaign, but Henry Kinch came out on top.
Yep, yep. And now you're seeing over the years, have you seen any difference in the type of campaigns or you must have?
Oh, yeah. Campaigns have changed greatly since back then.
It was grassroots.
There was a lot of grassroots. You want to do a mailing, you bring people in the headquarters and you stuff the envelopes,
Yes,
you put the labels on them, you put the stamps on them. That's not done anymore. It all goes through a mail house.
Right.
A lot of social media nowadays with
now
campaigns.
it makes it easier.
Yes.
That's a lot easier.
A lot easier, but more expensive.
Is it really more expensive?
Well, it is in a lot of ways because, you got to pay for different labor and stuff, but in some ways it's cheaper, time saving. But
because I do remember stuffing envelopes.
Oh, yeah.
And you always had somebody stuff in, somebody licking them, or not licking them, they'd wipe them with a sponge.
Yep.
And then somebody with a sponge with the stamps, because even the stamps back then didn't have, you had to wet them.
Now basically you get the brochure you're doing, send it to the mail house addresses them, and out it goes. So it saves a lot of time in that way.
Right, right. But it costs a lot of
costs more money, and mailing's getting expensive. So, but campaigns need to get direct mail into people's hands.
Right.
So before they used to do a lot of leafleting, you don't do as much as that anymore.
We used to do it all the time.
Yeah.
I know when I ran for office. Do you know the first time I ran was in 1972? I ran right out of college. I graduated from Roger Williams University. It was a college at the time in Bristol.
Was that for city council?
No, I ran for state rep.
State rep.
I lost in a 3-man race by 2 votes.
I remember that.
And had it not been for they threw the other person in there to push me over a column as the old game was played, right? And which I ended up losing by 55 votes, but they found 53 votes on 3 machines. They found 18 votes on one machine, 25 on another machine, 10 on another machine, for a total of 53 votes they found on 3 machines. I filed for a recount, of course.
Yep.
And I also filed charges against the ward committee for their underhanded tactics. I mean, they pulled some stunts in that election. They actually had my opponent's leaflets taped in one polling place inside the machine. There were 8 polling places in my district. I won 5 of them and lost the election.
That happens. Some people win some precincts very large, and other people win the small precincts, but it's not enough.
But this wasn't the case. The larger precincts had already come in, and there were 7 in, and the last one to come in was a precinct that was laden with elderly housing, and I lost like 5-1 in that precinct. It was and that was the precinct where they had the machines, in fact, I sued the warden of that polling place for slandering me, and I'm sure you know how difficult it is to prove slander.
Yep.
And get a judgment. And I did. I won because you have to prove that he said something that was not true and that his intent was malice.
Yep.
And I proved both.
Oh.
And I won, but I didn't win any money because he didn't have anything. I sued him for $100,000. I won a judgment, but I didn't get anything because he didn't have anything.
Yep.
But the proof was that he did it for
Oh.
the ward committee, the ward bosses as they were back in the day.
Yep.
But it still cost me the election. I still lost the
still
election.
lost.
2 votes. 2 votes. All that means is if you flip one voter, it's a tie game,
Yeah.
right? If it changed one voter, and there were so many people that were going, and those were the old machines where they had the lever, lever like this. And I had done a huge voter registration drive, and there were so many new voters, and they would go in the machines, and these people, if they knew they were voting for me, because sometimes they would have my pin on or whatever, or I'll ask, I just want to vote for Bob or whatever, that type of thing. They go in the machine, and they say, oh, grab that lever, pull that lever back, and pull it back, and they go, well, wait a minute, I didn't pull the lever. I didn't do the little thing that it said, oh, you already voted. It's too late now.
Well, there's been a number of close elections in Pawtucket. There was a state rep race, a special election.
One-
Andy McConnell won by 3 votes back in the
Oh, my God, that was a long time ago.
early 80s, I think, or late 70s.
Then the one in Phelan, there was
Phelan,
1 vote. I was involved in that.
Carlos Tobon lost by 1 vote.
I was involved in that
To
election.
Billy Sambento, who was recently passed away about
Right.
a year or so ago. But Carlos came back again, ran the second time after that, and won the race when Billy didn't run.
Right.
So
right.
he's now the state rep for that
Yes.
district.
Yeah, in fact, I saw him recently, Carlos.
Yep.
But it's amazing how. What about the race for Doyle's district? Didn't they just have the primary?
They just had the primary. Sandra Cano won that very easily. She got like six,
Former councilwoman.
right. She got she still is the councilwoman.
is the
until
councilwoman.
The general election's April 3rd, but she got about 61% in a 3-way primary, which is
Wow.
very good.
Wow.
Now she's going against a Republican, and see what happens there on April 3rd. But Pawtucket usually votes Democratic in a lot of ways.
Well, Pawtucket, I think, if I recall, back in the day, was considered, if not the most Democratic city in the country, certainly in the way up there.
Well, it's up there. We consider Rhode Island a Democratic city, but places like Providence, Central Falls, those are 2 very heavily Democratic areas, probably more so than Pawtucket at this time.
Really?
Yeah.
But I know my area, the 5th Ward, was
Yep.
very, very heavily Democratic.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the 6th Ward, you do have an enclave of Republicans, and even over in the 2nd and 3rd Ward.
Yeah,
But-
5th Ward was just always been the smallest ward in the city of Pawtucket,
Right,
if I remember
right,
correctly.
Exactly. But I never ran for council. Oh, I shouldn't say that because I did one time, and only because I didn't like the idea what the outgoing councilman did one time. He stuck somebody in his place and didn't say anything until it came out in the paper that he wasn't running, and they had a candidate ready to go.
You say it's Democratic, but when I first started in politics back in '69, the councilman for that district was Republican.
Ray who?
Matter of fact, his license plate said Rhode Island GOP on it.
Exactly. And
And
that's
he-
the guy that I always had a feud with. And he decided this time not to run, and he didn't tell anybody, and last minute they stuck somebody in his place, and I took out papers to run against him. And after I took out papers, I said, wait a minute, I don't want to be a councilman. There's no way I want to be a councilman. And now I'm going, oh my God, what am I going to do? I could win this race, and I don't even want to win this race. And fortunately, Mary Bray ended up
Yep.
taking out papers. I didn't know her from a hole in the wall, and I approached her, and I said, look, I'll work your campaign. I want to drop out. I'll support you publicly and work for you. And, oh, great. Well, which is what I did.
And who did Mary Bray beat?
Well, wait a minute. Here's the best part. They couldn't take my name off the ballot, right? So I ended up being on the ballot, even though I publicly
Right.
denounced my candidacy
Too
and
late.
supported Mary Bray and worked for her for several weeks for the election.
Yep.
And I still ran second. Mary Bray beat the guy that's now the mayor of
Right.
Pawtucket, who
Don
ran
Grevian.
third in that race.
Yep.
In fact, we talked about that on the show. I said, by the way, the only one that beat you was me, I think. Well, me and Mary Brett beat you.
Oh, yeah.
But times
Things
change.
come around.
Times
Yep.
change. He's come around. He's a good
Yep.
guy.
Things
Yep.
change.
And actually, he's had a string of bad luck recently. His brother died a couple months ago,
Yes,
3
and his
months
father.
ago, and then his father died.
Yep.
I went to the wake a couple weeks ago.
I was there. Yeah.
So now, what are we doing with Fleming and Associates? You've been doing.
Just finished a poll for WPRI and Roger Williams University. They combined this year to do polling in the state. We're going to be doing a series of polls for them. And we just came out back a couple weeks ago with our first poll for Channel 12 and Roger Williams University.
All right, and what did you ask in your poll?
Well, we asked questions on the governor's race. We asked questions on the direction of the state. We had some issue questions. We asked favorability of elected officials, and we asked job ratings of elected officials. So we went through all that. We
Right.
did a survey of 419 registered voters. We did not do likely voters because we're so far away from the election.
Right.
When we get closer to the election, we'll only interview likely voters.
Now, what do you mean by likely vote?
People
that
who, when we
sure,
call
you're
them up,
pretty
we
sure
screen
gonna
them. We
vote.
ask them if they're going to vote in the election.
Right.
If they say they're not sure, we don't interview them. But right now, if they say they're a registered voter, we would ask them to do the survey. But say come June or July, the second question would be, what's the likelihood of you voting this November? We'll give them a series of questions to answer. And if they don't answer them correctly, we then don't interview them.
All right, now, do you go Republican and Democrat? Or
We try to get the correct balance. This survey had about 38% Democrat, about 15% Republican, about 46% Independent.
That's what I find interesting in Rhode Island. Most people like to call themselves an independent.
Correct. The majority of the people, I think it's like 50% of the people in the state of Rhode Island are listed as independent.
Right.
They may vote Democrat, they may vote Republican, but they like to be called independents.
Sure.
That's how they register to vote. They may vote in a Republican primary or a Democratic primary, but what do they do when they come out to disaffiliate to stay independent?
And it's a little tougher in Rhode Island than it is in other states, isn't it, to be independent? Because you have to disaffiliate.
Yeah, when you walk out, all you have to do is basically sign a paper.
But I don't think a lot of states do that, do they? I don't think.
I'm not sure about other states how they do it.
I don't think they do. I think other states it's easier to be an independent than it is
Might
in
be.
Rhode Island. Because I remember back in the day, if you were voted in a Democratic primary, you couldn't vote in a Republican primary or any other primary
Right.
for 26 months,
That's how it used to be in Rhode Island, yeah?
which put it over the next
Yes.
election.
Yep.
26 months.
Yep.
Not 22 or 23, 26
You're right.
months.
You're right. But this survey was done between February 25th and 28th. It encompassed 21% cell phones, 79% landlines. It's very important that we do cell
different.
phones.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to have
exactly.
cell phones in the samples. There are a lot of houses that don't even have landlines anymore.
Nowadays,
Right.
I'll bet you it's
So-
getting to the point where 50% of the people don't have cell phones.
Well,
don't have landlines.
Or people who have the landlines have it so they switch over to their cell phones if you call the landline sometimes.
Yeah.
But we want to include, it's more expensive to call cell phones because when you do the landlines, you can use the dialers to dial the numbers, the automatic dialers.
Oh,
But
really?
with cell phones, you can't do that. You have to hand dial them.
Why
Because
is
it's against
that?
the law.
Really?
Yes, the interviewing companies cannot use the automated dialers to call cell phones. So what they do is they have to have somebody sit there and hand dial the number. So it costs us more money to do a cell phone.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. The margin of error on this survey is 4.8%, plus or minus. And we got a pretty good demographics that we wanted, and I think we have a pretty good survey.
Now, who comes up with the question?
I worked with basically Tim White, Ted Nisi, and Roger Williams University, get their input on what they want for the questions, and then we fine-tune the wording of the questions to try to make sure the questions are unbiased and fair, straightforward.
Right.
I've been working with Tim and Ted for many years now, so they pretty much know how to write the questions also, because they've done it for quite a while.
But wait a minute, you've been on Channel 12 longer than both of them together.
Yeah, I've been there for a long time. But it's been great working with Channel 12 over the years.
And it's funny that, as we talked about, you started there.
Right around the same time Jack White started.
Jack White started.
And we both grew up in the same neighborhood, like a block and a half apart
I
from
know.
each other. I went to school with his sister at St. Joe's.
Yeah, you
So-
were in the rich part of town. I was in the
Oh, yeah.
poor part of town. I was in Woodlawn. You were
Right around Memorial Hospital.
well, not really the rich part of town, but more so than the Woodlawn area.
And now I have the pleasure of working with his son. Tim was absolutely fantastic.
He's a good guy.
He's a great guy.
Interesting guy,
Yes,
good guy.
absolutely.
Yes, yes. He's make his father proud, that's
Oh,
for sure.
absolutely. There's no question about that. Really good guy.
And didn't he just win the whole crew there won the New England.
I don't remember what the award was, but yeah.
They won New England Investigative
Yeah,
Reporters
probably.
Award.
He does some great work.
He does. All right, so what was your first question?
Well, the first thing we asked the voters was simply, do you think the state of Rhode Island is moving in the right direction, or is it going seriously off track into the wrong direction? What we found was 39% said the state was going in the right direction, Bob, and 45% said it was going in the wrong direction,
Yep.
and 11% said it remained the same, and 5% was not sure. Believe it or not, this is the best number we've had in the Channel 12 surveys going back to 2010.
What do you mean the best number? Best number for that question?
For that question, on the right direction. Back in 2010...
They would probably say the wrong direction.
Oh, well, for example, in 2010, only 11.5% said the state was going in the right direction.
Wow.
72% said it was going in the wrong direction.
Wow.
So while the 39% is good, it's not a majority.
Right, but it's a heck of a lot better
Right, heck of a lot better than what it used to be.
than, what, 11%?
Yeah, 11%.
Wow.
We ask this question almost every survey we do for Channel 12.
Right.
Lets us know how people are viewing the whole state.
That was going to, my next question was going to be, why do you ask that question?
Well, we want to get an idea and if people think the state is moving in the right direction. And basically, a lot of times it reflects the economy of how the state's going.
Right.
You know, if we asked this question in 2009, 2008, when the economy was tanking,
and people don't have jobs.
right, then you're going to get a lot lower number.
Right.
But what's interesting in this question, when you ask the political parties, what we found was 60% of Democrats said it was moving in the right direction. 73% of Republicans said it was going in the wrong direction.
Well, that's surprising.
No, that's what you would expect. Democrats
Really?
are running the state, so Republicans wouldn't be happy. Independents,
Oh, right.
though,
Yeah.
27% said the right direction, and 54% said the wrong direction.
Now that surprises me.
Well, somewhat. Yeah, more than half of the independents said the wrong direction, and they make up about half of the sample in the state of Rhode Island.
Right.
But what we found was males were more inclined to say the state was moving in the wrong direction, 52%, where females, 44% said the right direction. So females were more optimistic about the direction of the
Right.
state. Males were more negative on the direction
Now,
of the state.
is that normal?
Well, we've been finding that lately in these surveys.
But you say lately.
I don't remember going back to 2010 what the numbers were. But the last few surveys that I've done for people
Right,
pretty much
right.
found these. You know, we asked this question for a lot of different organizations that I do polling for.
Yeah.
So,
Now, does that give you you said it's only a 4.8
margin of error.
margin of
Yeah.
error. So only less than 500 people, and you still get you're pretty
Yeah.
certain that you still get.
The thing you got to do is draw the sample correctly. We buy the sample from a sample company,
Right.
and it's a random sample of the voters in the state of Rhode Island. For example, if we're doing 417 people, 419 people, you don't want 200 of them from the city of Providence.
Right.
They're going to come from
Or any city, for that matter.
Or 200 from Exeter, for example. You know, it would throw it all off. So what you got to do is the sample company will draw the sample for me the way I want it.
Now, how do they draw the sample?
It's from registered voter files they have. They have access to they get the registered voter files, match them up with phone numbers, and they draw them from there. Every nth name or whatever. But nowadays you can do a lot of phone calls to complete an interview. When I first started doing this, you might do 8, 9 phone calls to get an interview. Now it might be 30, 40 phone calls to get
For
an interview.
one interview?
Well, because a lot of times people don't answer their landline.
Right.
So that's a phone call.
Or they're
you know.
too busy nowadays.
Or they don't qualify for the survey. Or at the end of the survey, we need males or we need females, and the opposite sex answers. And the one you need isn't home. Or they don't want to do the survey. So it's a lot harder nowadays.
Right.
But we get the correct sample, and we get the demographics that match pretty much the population of Rhode Island. Maybe not right to the 1%, but I think this one we get some pretty good numbers from.
Wow. Were you surprised at the survey, how it came out?
No, not necessarily. Some of the issue questions, I was surprised at how strong people felt one way or the other. The political races, when we asked favorability, a couple of people were not that well known. That did not surprise me at all. Might have surprised them a little bit. Didn't surprise me.
Like what?
Well,
what race?
you know, Patricia Morgan was running as a Republican for governor, and Joe Triller running as independent. Probably 65 to 70% of the people could
Don't
not
know
answer a
him.
question on that.
Right.
And again, you may be known around the political players
Sure.
and around the insiders, but the general public doesn't know you yet.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't win at all.
Right.
I mean, when Don Cacciari first started running for governor,
Yep.
he was a businessman. He wasn't known among a lot of Rhode Islanders, but he got better known. When Barack Obama
I
started
knew you were
running
going
for
to say
president,
that. Yeah.
he wasn't known at all.
2%?
I think it was like 2% of the polls he was polling.
In his first poll.
And the first polls I heard, he was way down there. You know, he's drawing like 2%. And he ended up being elected president. So
Twice.
you got to get better known.
Right. All right.
So that was the first question we had.
All right, what was the second question?
Well-
What'd you do? How many questions did you do? 5?
No, there's about 12 different, 12, 13
12
questions.
questions?
Yeah.
Oh,
The
good.
next thing, we asked a battery of questions here on favorability of people. Do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of certain people? So the first one was Donald Trump.
Right.
In Rhode Island, 35% said they had a favorable opinion of him, and 64% had an unfavorable opinion.
That's not surprising.
Nope. Interestingly, males, 47% favorable, 52% unfavorable. Females,
Got to be high. Unfavorable.
23% favorable, 76% unfavorable. Big gender gap there. Political parties, Democrats, 92% unfavorable. Republicans, 86% favorable.
86%
Which is what you expect. They're staying with them.
Wow.
The
I
Republicans
guess.
in Rhode Island stay with Donald Trump. On the independents, 57% unfavorable. So he had some unfavorable numbers among the independents.
Well, how does that work for Trillo when he looks at that poll?
Well, I think Joe Trillo made some comment about simply, that was the most shocking thing I think he said about this poll, that Trump's numbers were so low, because Joe Trillo has tied his wagon to Donald Trump.
Exactly.
As being the Trump coordinator in the state of Rhode Island.
Right.
But here, Donald Trump, this is his favorability. This isn't even his job rating, which we asked later on in the survey, which is lower than this number.
Right.
So I think Joe has to look at this and say, how strong do I want to tie myself to Donald Trump? Because,
Sure.
but again, in
Well,
the
look what happened in the race they just had. Where was that race?
Pennsylvania. Right. District Trump won by 20 points. The
Right.
Democrat won by 600 votes. But
Is that done, by the way, already? Did
I'm
they
not-
have the? Did they have?
I'm
the,
not sure. I would think the Democrats won it from what I heard. I haven't followed it closely later on this week. But the thing is to keep in mind with Joe Trillo, I mean, even if Trump's only getting 30%, if he's in a 4 or 5 way race, 30% could win you the election.
Right.
But
which,
doesn't mean
which happened 3 years ago.
she had 41%.
41%.
But the thing is, doesn't mean he's going to get all 31% or 35% of the Trump voters. Some will go to the Republican, in the race, which could either be one of many
Fung.
people. Could one of many people. This one,
Fung, Morgan,
and there's one more.
the guy that used to
Giovanni.
be Giovanni.
Yep. The next thing we asked people about Alan Fung, if they had a favorable or unfavorable opinion of him.
Right.
49% said they had a favorable opinion, 26% unfavorable, and another 25% couldn't answer the question.
Really?
So he's not that he's known, but he's
But
not that well known.
Well known. They know
Right.
a little bit about
Right.
him, but not enough
Or
to
they
make
might
it.
have remembered about him 4 years ago when he ran for governor. Now they may not remember as much about him.
But what that tells me is that 25% didn't want to make either way. Tells
Right.
me that they know who he is, but they don't want to make a judgment on him because they don't know him well enough.
Right, and it gives him room for growth. Those who do know him, he has a 2-to-1 favorable to unfavorable, which is good.
That's good.
So he has room for growth, does very well among Republicans, does well among males, does well among elderly, even among Democrats. 40% had a favorable opinion, only 34% unfavorable.
Wow.
So Democrats had a favorable opinion of Alan Fung.
What, and independents?
Independents, 51% to 23%. So those are good numbers for Alan Fung.
Very good numbers for Alan Fung.
We then asked about the governor, Gina Raimondo, and 50% had a favorable opinion of her, and 46% unfavorable. Now, her favorable, we're going to see, is a lot higher than her job rating. And that happens a lot of times.
Really?
She does very well among females. She does well among Democrats, very poor among Republicans.
Which
And-
figures.
Right. And among independents, not that well. 40% had a favorable opinion, 57% had unfavorable opinion.
And I'll
of
go
her.
back to the Fung thing. You had
Fung was
40
over 50%
It was
among
what?
independents.
He was what?
50% with independents.
50%.
Yeah, and she's at 40%. And we'll see that when we get to the head-to-head race for governor, where he wins among the independents.
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
make sense, yeah.
We then asked about Patricia Morgan, and only 18% gave her a positive job rating. Favorable opinion. 13% unfavorable, and 69% couldn't answer the question.
Because they didn't know her.
No. And I mean,
She does a great job, and she's a very smart woman.
right.
And she's a hard worker, from what I've seen.
But until you get out there with a lot of paid media to get an image of yourself, people don't really know who you are.
Right.
She's in the paper, she's in the General Assembly, she's a minority leader, she says a lot, she has a lot of proposals, but the general public does not have a strong picture of her at this time.
And
Doesn't mean it can't change.
but that's where the money comes in.
Exactly. You have to have a good deal of money in order to change that image.
And the governor has how much?
She's at over $3 million right now.
$3 million.
Right. In a small state.
And the next, yeah, exactly. And the next closest What
I
is
think
Fung?
Alan Fung is like 250,000, maybe even less than that.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
But
That's like 12 times.
All right, but keep in mind, a lot of outside money could come into play in these races. You know, from the National Governors Committee for the
Right.
Republicans and for the Democrats. National Republicans could put money in. If they think they could win the seat, you could see money come in. If they don't feel they have a chance for the seat, you might not. You'll see the Democrats, Governors Association, coming in to probably put money in to shore up the governor.
Well, she's already got $3 million.
Right. But you get a lot of outside money in these races. We asked about Joe Trillo, how people rated him. And the biggest thing was 67% couldn't answer the question.
Wow.
So 2/3 of the voters couldn't answer it,
And he was in the General Assembly, what, 10 years?
at least, I think. Yeah. State
And he was
Representative
an
from Warwick.
outgoing guy. He was always,
But again, you know, being known by 30-some% of the voters isn't bad either. But when you're running for governor, you got to get known to like 95, 96% of the voters.
Right.
So he has a ways to go yet. But again, if you get the right resources, you have the resources, you start the TV, you start the paid media, you can get yourself
does he
known.
have any money?
I
I know he has money personally.
Right. I think he put $100,000 of his own money in, if I remember correctly. But he has to raise some money. There's no question.
$100,000 doesn't go far for TV.
No.
Not at all, right?
No. I mean, you could buy some ads on cable fairly cheap, but if you want to go to the major TV stations,
Right.
it's going to cost you a lot more money for those ads. You know.
And how many times you got to run them?
Oh, you have to run them many times. And now the hottest part is with people with their DVRs and stuff, you know, go right through, you skip all the ads, you tape your shows.
Yeah,
So-
you're looking at one that does that.
So it takes a lot. We then asked, the next set of questions, we asked 4 questions on people's job ratings of elected officials. We couldn't do that about the other people because obviously Patty Morgan, Joe Trillo, Alan Fung, they're not statewide office holders.
Right.
So he's had favorability. We asked about Donald Trump's job rating. Only 30% gave an excellent or good job rating. 70% said his job was fair or poor. And
Wow.
of that group, 54% rated his job as poor. So,
And how does it break down Democrat, Republican?
95% of Democrats, fair or poor. 80% of Republicans,
Said good.
excellent or good. Right.
Excellent or good.
That's how you could tell. I mean, you're saying, okay, you laugh at the numbers, but you're saying, well, if those numbers were different, you might say, well, the poll might not be right. But you would expect Republicans to be where they are.
Oh, yeah.
Among independents, 34% excellent or good, 65% fair or poor.
Well, that's the important one. In my opinion, is the independent.
Yeah. And right now, those numbers, remember now, he only got about 38% of the vote in the state when he ran for president.
Right.
So, I mean, it wasn't like he almost beat Hillary Clinton. He didn't. He
But
was still-
Hillary didn't win the state.
She did win the state.
She did?
Yeah.
I thought Sanders.
That was in the primary.
Oh, okay, that's what
In
I
the
meant.
general election,
That's right.
Hillary won
Yeah,
the state.
yeah, in the general election.
She didn't do as well as other Democrats have in the state. The independents got some of the vote. But Trump did a little bit better than Republicans have done in the past, but not a lot.
Right.
We then asked about the governor's job ratings. Remember, her favorability was at 50%. Her job rating, however, is at 37%.
Wow, is
And
that
si-
unusual?
And 61% fair or poor. What, the difference between a job rating and a favorability?
Right.
No. I've seen that in many candidates over the year where people might like them as a person and they don't like them as a
As a
office
governor.
holder, as a governor. For example, one of the Roger Williams professors made this comment on Newsmakers, and she made a very good analogy. It's like you have a teacher in school. I really like that teacher. What a great guy that, or a great female
Sure.
she is. But you know what?
I'm not learning anything.
Not learning it. Can't teach. You know, so you like the person,
Right.
but you don't like him as a teacher.
Right,
And that's why you get a difference in favorability and job rating sometimes.
Wow.
And you got to look at both those. I've seen candidates who've had low job ratings but real high favorability
Sure.
and get reelected because
Sure.
people just like them.
Oh,
They
that's
may not
popularity
Right.
contest. It's a
Or
popularity
they could be,
contest.
or sometimes people may not like them as much, but they like the job they're doing, and that also helps them. So you got to look at both ends here.
Right, right. Wow.
Republicans, 86% don't like her. Gave her
86% what?
Fear a poor job. They said the governor, the Republicans. With Democrats, with
Republicans,
55% to 42%. We then asked about Jack Reed. 57% gave him an excellent or good job rating. 36% fear or poor. We then asked about Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who is up for re-election.
Right.
He had 46% excellent or good, 48% fear or poor. So his job is right in the middle there.
Right.
But he does very well among Democrats, very poor among Republicans, not that great among independents.
How not that great?
37% excellent or good, 58% fair or poor.
Oh. Now, he has how many candidates against him?
There's 2 Republicans right now at least running.
No independent?
Not yet. Again, filing's not to June, so a lot more people can come out of the woodwork. We're only in March now.
Right.
You got to the end, I think sometime late in June to file. There's like a 3-day window to file your papers.
Right.
And then you get your signatures after that. So.
Yeah, it's usually like a Wednesday to a Friday, isn't it?
It could be that, or it could be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Right,
whatever
yeah.
they have. The calendar's already out for that. I just don't know
That's
what
right,
it is.
Yeah.
After we asked these questions, Bob, we then asked if the election of a governor were held today,
Right.
and the candidates were Gina Raimondo, Alan Fung, William Gilbert, Joe Trillo, and Mr. Moniz, who's an independent. We asked them who they would vote for. And what we found was interesting. The governor received 38.2% of the vote. Mayor Fung received 35.6%. Mr. Gilbert, 2.1%.
Right.
Joe Trillo received 6.2%. Mr. Moniz received no votes. And 17% were not sure who they would vote for. Now, there was a difference in the sex on this. Alan Fung was winning males 43% to 30 over the governor.
Right.
The governor was winning females 46% to 28.
Wow.
Among the political parties, she was winning the Democrats 63% to 15. Alan Fung was winning the Republicans 6 to 70. Now, Joe Trillo was getting 6% to 70% of the vote.
Wow.
Among Republicans, which you would expect.
Right.
And Joe Trillo was getting 9% of the Republican votes.
So without Joe Trillo in that race,
They could have gone to Alan Fung, you would think.
you
Because
think most of them.
I think most of them would have. Among independents, she received 28.9% of the independent vote.
Ouch.
Alan Fung received 40.7%. Now, what was interesting here,
That's the election.
well, she got 28.9% of the independents. That's the exact same number that rated her job as excellent or good of the independents. So basically, she got people who rated the job excellent or good of independents voted for her. The others did not.
Holy cow.
But that's where she has some work to do.
She's got
obviously.
some work to do. That would scare me if I was running a campaign.
Well, again, here's the thing. Like you said, $3 million, it's March. A poll is nothing more than a snapshot of when it's taken.
Sure.
Things change. So as she gets a message out, she might aim her message more towards the independent voters to try to get those voters
she
back.
should, yeah.
And even Democrats, 63%. I think she wants to get that up to like 70, 75% of Democrats.
right.
So she'll do some things there to try to build up her support.
Now, you didn't include Matt Brown in
This
that.
poll was done right before Matt Brown announced.
Really?
Yep. He announced, the poll came out, and I think Matt Brown announced a day or two later.
I would think Matt Brown would hurt her more than hurt Fung.
Well, again, it depends on what type of campaign Matt Brown runs. I mean, Matt Brown's a former Secretary of State of Rhode Island.
Right.
Very good speaker. If Matt Brown gets out there and raises a good amount of money and gets himself known, based on what I've read so far, he's going to have a very progressive agenda.
Yep.
And he's going to try to peel off progressive votes from the governor. And yes, I would think that Matt Brown, if he runs a good campaign, he's definitely going to hurt the governor at this point, I believe.
Now, when you say progressive, those are the liberals,
The
more
liberal,
liberals.
The liberal, yeah, his messages I've read so far is more liberal, more progressive. So I think he's going to try to peel votes away from her right away. I don't see him, at this time, don't see him taking too many votes from Alan Fung.
Right.
Again, assuming Alan Fung's the nominee. We asked the second question for governor. But this time, instead of Alan Fung, we had the same people, but we had Patricia Morgan in, state representative. This time, the governor's number goes up to 43%. Patricia Morgan's at 25%.
Right.
Joe Trillo jumps up to 9%.
9%.
Right, and the others are still very low. And there's 20% undecided.
Oh, that's without Fung in there.
Without Fung, we put Patricia Morgan as the independent. This time, the governor wins the male vote, where she lost it last time. She wins the female vote very convincingly. She still has a problem with Republicans. She still only gets 6% of the Republican votes. But among Democrats, it goes from 62% to 72%.
And what about independent?
Independents, she still has a problem. She's winning it 32% to 29%.
But it still didn't go up that much.
25% of the independents are undecided at this point.
Yeah.
But again, we've already saw earlier in the poll, people don't know who Patty Morgan is.
Right.
So that could be why the independent number is going up.
Right.
You know, you got to look at all these different factors.
So whoever spends, well, not whoever spends the most money, but a lot of play is going to be on who spends the most money and how they spend the most money.
How they
spend
it's not
the money.
always who spends the most money.
That's how I
It's how
corrected
it's spent.
myself quickly.
Right. It's
'Cause
how you spend the money.
I've seen people. Well, remember there was an election. I can't remember who it was, but it was in Pawtucket. It was a mayoral race, and they kept on saying the opponent's name in the ad. In one ad they had, I forget who it was, they said the opponent's name 7 times in the ad. I go, that is a huge mistake. That is a huge mistake.
It depends. Now, if the opponent's not known, yeah. But if the opponent's a well-known name, it doesn't hurt by saying it because you're trying to get a probably negative message across.
Well,
about
that
your
person
opponent.
lost the election by the person that kept on saying the name lost the election.
Well,
and I thought for sure. I said from the go. I said it was a bad move to say the name of your opponent. You're giving them free publicity.
well, yes and no, as I said, because
Well, what did Buddy Cianci always say? It's not if you like me or dislike me as long as you say my name,
yeah,
right?
yep.
Because when they get in the voting booths and they haven't, these people that haven't decided, they get in the voting booths and they look at the names and they go, I don't know that name, but wait, I know that name.
Especially farther down the ballot. The top races, people pretty much know who's running and what they stand for. It's when you get farther down the ballot. I mean, if you ask the people, do a job rating on, say, the Attorney General, Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor, General Treasurer, you're going to have a lot of people not know who they are or be able to answer the question.
Right.
They're farther down the ballot. Then the last thing we did in the survey, Bob, was we did 3 questions on issues. The first one we said, Congress is debating whether to allow some immigrants who are brought to the United States illegally as children to stay in the country.
DACA.
Right, without risk of deportation. Do you support or oppose that? We didn't say DACA because we thought that might influence it too much.
Sure.
So we worded it that way, and we found 75% supported leaving them in the country.
Oh, yeah.
And 17% opposed it. 78% of females supported it. 92% of Democrats. Republicans were a little divided. 53% supported it. 42% opposed to it. 68% of independents supported it. So overwhelming support for these children, or they were children when they came to the United States, to remain in the country.
Now, did any indication male versus female?
Males were 71% supported it. Females were 78%.
Oh, it's close.
Yeah, it was fairly close. So that was the first issue that we asked. The second issue question we asked dealt with guns. This is
Guns? You mean automatic weapons?
right. Well, we did the question we asked: do you support or oppose a state law which would make it illegal to sell or possess semi-automatic rifles such as an AR-15?
Right.
We found 60% supported it, 35% opposed it, 5% weren't sure. Again, big difference among the sexes in this question. Big
I
difference.
can believe the answer to that one.
Okay. Males, 48% supported it, 45% opposed to it. Females, 71% supported it, 26% opposed to it.
Right.
Big difference. Big difference in political parties. Democrats,
Right.
71% supported it, 25% opposed it. Republicans, 47% supported it, 50% opposed it. So they were divided. And among the independents, 54% supported it, 39% opposed it. And all the age groups all supported it also.
Every age group.
Every age group supported it, with the strongest support coming from the middle-aged voters, 40 to 59. But you see the big difference among the sexes in this question, where males are divided.
Oh, yeah.
And females overwhelmingly. And Republicans are divided, but Democrats and independents overwhelmingly support the ban. And the last question we asked was about sexual harassment. And we said, do you think that sexual harassment in society today is a very serious problem, somewhat serious, not too serious, or not a serious problem at all? 85% said it was very serious or somewhat serious.
Wow.
And 45% of them said it was very, very serious. 14% not too serious. Not big changes among the sexes. 82% of the males said it was very, very or somewhat serious. 88% among the females.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah. Among the Democrats, 95% said very serious or somewhat serious. 75% of the Republicans, and 80% of the independents.
Right, so that was all pretty good.
Right, and all the age groups were all in the 80% range. So they all were very much consistent with that one. And again, that was a survey that we did, and this is just the first of a series of probably, I'm not sure how many, it's going to be like 3 or 4 surveys for Channel 12 and Roger Williams University this year that we'll be doing. This was to give us a benchmark of where the race for governor stands right now. The next ones, I'm not sure when they're going to be. I'm assuming they're going to be probably late in the summer sometime, and then into the fall before the elections. So,
Well, the primary's in September,
September, on a Wednesday this year.
Wait a minute, why? That's a first.
It is. I think.
Right?
I think the Tuesday's a Jewish holiday. I'm not 100% sure. I think that was the reason why it was moved.
Well, I've never heard of it.
There was a reason why it was moved.
I wish they
don't
put it
remember
on
the
a
reason.
Saturday.
Well, again, they're talking about early voting. You know,
What do you think of early voting?
well, if it can get more people to vote,
Yeah,
you know, it's great. I mean, because obviously with a democracy, you want more people involved.
Right.
I mean, we have many races where less than half the people vote.
I know, and it's sad because you go to other countries where they have democracies, like Spain, for instance. Their voter turnout's in the 80%, high 70s, early 80 percentiles. We're lucky if we get 50%.
Yeah, presidential election around, we do pretty well with our turnout. It's well over 50%. But in a non-presidential election, you're not going to get a huge turnout.
And if you don't have a big marquee, or say
Right.
you don't have an election for governor,
Right.
it's down in the
Yeah,
20s.
yeah,
right?
correct. If there's not a big race, but the thing is, the way we're set up in Rhode Island, every 2 years there will be a big race. Like we have a governor this time.
Right.
2 years from now there won't be a
Senate.
governor, but there'll be president.
And then
Right.
2 years after that, you have the senator.
Now you have the governor again.
And the governor.
Yeah. So I mean, we do have a Senate race. Every 30 election we have no Senate race because they're serving 6-year terms.
Sure.
So
And we only have 2 senators.
Right.
Now, what's going to happen with the
census.
census?
Well, there's a good possibility Rhode Island could lose one of the congressmen. We could end up with just one congressman in the state of Rhode Island. Last
But
time
still
we
have
really,
2 senators.
Oh, everyone has 2 senators.
Always have
that
2
doesn't
senators,
change.
yeah.
That was part of the great compromise when the Constitution was put together. Everyone has 2 senators. The House of Representatives is based on population.
Sure.
And right now you need to have over 1 million people to have the 2 representatives.
Right.
We could fall below whatever the new threshold's going to be, depending on the census. And we could end up with one representative in the House. But we don't know at this time.
And didn't you just get your? I just got my census papers in.
I got a thing today in the mail, yes.
I did too.
I've already filled it out online.
Have you? Yeah.
Yep. Just some basic information they want. So I've already done that today.
Yeah, I got them all for all my tenants. Same thing. You know?
Yeah, it's just a simple thing. It's not the whole census form.
Well, I got 2 things. I must have got the census.
Oh, I just got
thing.
a simple thing to fill out.
No, I got it was a few pages.
Oh,
I haven't really looked at
mine
it.
was the thing you go online and do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody has to do it, right? Don't you?
I think
By
you-
law,
yeah,
you're supposed
I
to
think
do a
so.
census.
Yeah, which is in 2020, which is when the census is.
Now, when are you going to do one for the General Assembly? No, I'm sorry, not the General Assembly. The state office holders, the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state.
Oh, the
treasurer.
race is there? I would think as the race develops and we get close to the election, like we don't know who all the candidates are for those offices at this time. So there's no Republicans. I think there might be one Republican who said they're running for lieutenant governor. I haven't heard a Republican.
Who's that?
I can't remember his name. I don't think any Republicans said they're going to run for treasurer or secretary of state yet or attorney general. So I think what Channel 12 and Roger Williams will do is probably towards the fall, we would test those races. You know, but right now we were focusing on the governor's race because that seems to be the hot race in the state of Rhode Island.
Sure, yeah.
The U.S. Senate race could get interesting, but we don't know at this point. It's a good possibility there.
Now, who do you have there? You got Bobby
Nadalilo and Robert Flanders on the Republican
and
side.
Robert Flanders.
Right. So they're going to be in a primary, and whoever comes out of that will be facing Sheldon Whitehouse, the Democrat.
Right.
You know, I haven't heard of any independents running yet, but we'll have to wait and see.
Okay. Now, how about what I'm looking forward to in 4 years? It's going to be crazy, because you're going to have so many people term limited, right? The treasurer,
Yep.
the secretary of state,
Right.
lieutenant governor if
Well,
he gets
depends. If
reelected,
he gets reelected.
and the governor.
Right. you're assuming all those people get reelected.
Right, assuming they
Like right now in 2018, the only person who is term limited is Pawtucket boy Peter Kilmartin.
Right.
He served 8 years as Attorney General. When we went to go a 4-year term, that was one of the stipulations. You can only serve 2 4-year terms.
Correct.
Before that, it was unlimited, but you're up every 2 years.
Well, it's kind of good that it's like that. I think that they get stale after a while,
That's true.
right?
You know, you got.
Now, what do you think of the lieutenant governor's race, by the way?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting. Right now, you got a strong primary. You got the lieutenant governor running as Aaron Regenberg, who's a young, progressive, very energetic, very hard campaigner.
Right.
I think a lot's going to depend on the turnout of that race, on who actually comes on to vote for that Democratic primary. Turnouts in a primary could be as low as, 7 or 80,000, or it could be up as high as 140, 150,000.
Right.
So that's really hard to say at this point. It's still early. Both camps are working hard already. So it's going to be an interesting race. Very interesting race.
It will be, and I should acknowledge, I guess, that I work for the lieutenant governor. So.
Okay.
I should say that, and I have this to say about that particular race. That this guy is I've been involved in a whole bunch of campaigns in my life, and I've never met a guy that is more dedicated and hands-on and does more. I mean, I'm with him a lot, going around all over the state. We did this whole thing. We toured all 39 communities, small businesses. We went to 39 diners, and then we went to 39 farms.
Yep.
And I am amazed, first of all, at how many farms there are in the state of Rhode Island.
Oh, yeah.
And now we're doing 39 manufacturers. I'm amazed at not only how many manufacturers there are in the state, but the quality of manufacturers. We were at a manufacturer yesterday, I guess, and it was, they got robotics. They got all robots doing the, making this real precise little metal things that go on airplanes and stuff that's or for medical devices. It's amazing how precise. It's like a lot of them are offshoots of the old Brown and Sharp. There's several companies.
Yep.
There's a company called Hectagon down in I guess North Kingstown. They bought up a lot of the Brown and Sharp stuff, and they do a lot of that kind of work. And the precision of the work of the American worker comes into play. It really shows in right here in Rhode Island. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting race. There's no question about that. Again, money is going to be a big factor there because you're going to have the money to get the vote out.
Right.
You're going to identify your vote. I mean, obviously, Aaron's from Providence. That's going to be a big plus for him.
Right. But he's not from Rhode Island. He's not a Rhode Islander. He's from Chicago, actually.
Okay. But the thing is, if he has a strong base in Providence, that's going to help him. No question about that.
Sure.
The question is how many big races are going to take place in Providence or reps and Senate that's going to draw people out in the primary.
Right.
Where Dan McKee should do well up in the northern part of the state. He's a former mayor of Cumberland. He's well known up there. So again, if there's big turnouts up there, that's going to help him. I think a big battleground area would be like Cranston and Warwick in South County.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with
It'll be
that.
an interesting race.
And what other race you think is going to be interesting?
Well, it's hard to say at this point. Sometimes you get races that just pop up.
You think the senator's race is going to be?
Again, it's possible. It depends on if one of the Republicans catch fire. Right now, Donald Trump is so unpopular. If you're Sheldon Whitehouse, you're basically running against Donald Trump.
Right.
You remember now when Sheldon Whitehouse defeated Lincoln Chafee, one of the things he said was, "Don't let Lincoln Chafee be the 50th vote in the Senate. That'll keep the Republicans and Bush in charge of the Senate."
Right.
And that worked because Rhode Islanders stayed Democratic. David Cicilline used that against Brendan Doherty.
Yep.
Wouldn't you rather have a Democrat in there? And he got all the Democrats to come home and support him. And I know a lot of Democrats who might have said at that time, "Well, I don't like him that much, but he's a Democrat and I want to support him."
Right.
So, a lot depends on what
The
happens
lesser
down
of
the
two
road.
evils in some cases.
Not necessarily, but I mean, people feel their philosophy is more Democratic in the 1st Congressional District, so they wanted to stay with the Democrat. They may have liked Brendan Doherty, but they figured he would vote with the Republicans, so that helped David Cicilline, I think. But, still early. You don't know what's going to happen with the Senate race. You don't know what mayor races could get big this year. You got Woonsocket, you got Cumberland, you got the first mayor's race in these provinces coming up this year.
Right, they just went from
Right.
it used to be not elected,
Town manager.
hired
Yeah,
town manager.
Yep. You got, so I said Woonsocket, Cumberland, Pawtucket's up this year again. So
But is there any real race
Warwick.
in Pawtucket? What's going on?
I
in
haven't heard
Pawtucket?
anybody
I
running
haven't
against the
heard
mayor
any
at this
name.
point.
No.
You know, if I remember correctly, the last incumbent mayor ever to be defeated was in 1953, something like that, the year I was born.
Really?
No, the closest race I think was when 1985, when Brian Sorrell was running against Henry Kinch, and Henry Kinch beat him by 200-300 votes.
Right, yeah, 300 something
Yeah.
votes, yeah.
But incumbents in Pawtucket, the voters have always tended to stay with incumbents.
Right.
They haven't thrown
And
any
when was the
incumbents
last
out.
time? Who was the last time? McCoy? Was that McCoy?
I
that
don't
got
know, but
beat?
I remember someone telling me that 53 was the last before or under this new charter that Pawtucket had in 53. No incumbents ever lost. Maybe that was the better way to say it.
Wow.
So if you're an incumbent, you're in good shape. So obviously the mayor being an incumbent, and I think the mayor, by pushing all this Pawtucket Red Sox stuff, makes him look even better. You know, he's really trying to help the city and do things to revitalize it.
Now, did you do any polling on that?
Yes, I did. I did some work for Build Rhode Island a couple weeks back. We did a survey on
Which
the
is
Pawtucket Red
what?
Sox.
Build Rhode Island.
It's a group of construction businesses and labor all together to keep Rhode Island moving forward. Some construction companies, some labor organization like the laborers, and we did a survey for them, and we found out if we said to the people, I wish I knew I would have brought it today, do you support taxpayer assistance for the Pawtucket Red Sox? Basically, 40% said yes, 53% said no.
Right.
But then we said, if you knew the $83 million bond, the owners were going to pay $45 million, the state was going to pay $23, the city of Pawtucket, that was like
17 or something?
$13 million, and here's how the Pawtucket money is going to come out. Here's how the state money is going to come out, and it's, you know, from revenues generated by the ballpark. When we asked the question that way, people supported it. Statewide.
Really?
Yeah, like 56% to 43, something like that. But again, we had to explain to them how it would be paid for.
Right,
So we found there was some support for the ballpark, no question. It's just that if you just say, do you want taxpayers assistance? No, because I think people are still hurt from 38 Studio.
Absolutely.
You know.
Oh, you hear that all the time.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, you know, they're looking at, why should we help these millionaires? You know, why should we pay when they're going to make the money?
Well, I think what you're finding is simply with the proposal that's out there now that the Senate passed, basically the state's putting the money up, but the money's being generated from the ballpark. If they're not here, you lose that money anyway.
Right.
So,
that's right.
you
That's
know.
right. And if they're not here, what happens to, what happens to McCoy anyway? I guess. You know what you know, both of us being Pawtucket guys.
That was my neighborhood.
Yeah. What happens to McCoy Stadium?
I would assume they'll probably knock it down at some point, and who knows what they'll do. I mean, the City Hall's in tough shape, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll put a public safety complex down there in the City Hall. I'm not sure. Maybe they'll build one high school for the whole city. No idea.
And that you say City Hall's in bad shape. That tower.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, the tower.
Take it down. Just take it down.
No, those aren't my decisions.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I remember working there in the late '80s, and
Yep.
that tower was in tough shape. They repointed it and whatever else, and it didn't hold up.
Oh yeah.
They'd be better off just getting rid of it. Although it wouldn't look as good, I guess.
Right.
Without it, it wouldn't stand out. It wouldn't stand out as a city hall or a
I
town
mean,
hall.
the first thing they got to do is get the House to pass the Port Sox bill so they can build a new stadium. If they don't build a new stadium, everything's a moot question at this
And
point.
what's holding that up in the House?
Well, the House hasn't made a decision yet what they're going to do. The Speaker hasn't said where he stands on the issue.
Well, he kind of has. He kind of says he's against it, hasn't he?
Well, I think he's saying he wants the taxpayers he doesn't want it to cost the taxpayers money. So I would think what they're going to try to do is figure out some ways to make it better for the taxpayer.
Right.
And maybe if they could do that, maybe the Speaker will support it. I don't know. I'm not involved in those things. I just did the survey for them a couple weeks back.
Yeah, I know. He'll have a tough race in his district. He almost lost last time, right?
He won by about 80, 85 votes. Yeah.
Well, he actually lost the election, but he won in the with
Absentee ballots.
ballots,
Right.
right? He lost the voter count.
Yes.
Machine count. He
Yes,
had
he
lost, didn't he?
Right. But they did the homework with the absentees.
They sure did.
You know.
They won almost all of them, if not all
A
of
good
them.
number of them, yeah.
They lost a lot. I mean, they won a lot of them.
Oh, yeah. No question about that.
But where else do we have big races? We don't have anything in Warwick.
There's a mayor's race in Warwick. I don't know who's running against Mayor Avedisian, who's been there for many years, very popular among
Yeah, he is a very popular
and he's
guy.
popular among Democrats, too.
He's a likable guy.
Very likable. He's a very likable man. Nothing in Cranston this year. They have a 4-year term. It's the middle of the term for Mayor Fung, but he's term limited. He can't run again in 2 years.
So if he were to win as governor anyway, they'd have to be a
That
special
was a special election, right.
Right?
And if he doesn't win as governor 2 years from now, he's out.
He's out anyway.
Right. There is a mayor's election in Providence this year. That is up again.
Oh, in Providence
Yes,
there's a
there is.
mayor election?
Yep.
And he just come out and endorsed Rentenberg.
Right. Who endorsed him when he ran for mayor?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. But there's one person who has announced against him. I can't remember his name. But it remains to be seen how serious of a challenge he has. But again, Bob, the thing is, it's still early. It's March. In some of these races, people can get in a little bit later on. You know, if they have the money, they can get better known.
Right, right.
So, who knows? Who knows?
So your next poll is going to be about what?
The
Or
next
do you
poll,
know?
I haven't sat down with Channel 12 yet. Again, it's probably going to be in June or July. My guess would be nothing too recent. We just did a poll for the Hassenfeld Institute from Bryan College on education for them. One question that your viewers might be interested in, we asked about the $250 million bond for education in the
Right.
state of Rhode Island. Voters overwhelmingly support it. 65%.
Wow,
Said they
good.
would support it. But again, I think we've seen a lot this winter of the schools being shut down because
Right.
of water pipes blowing and all
Exactly.
sorts of
And
problems.
the mess
right.
the schools are in.
So people realize that we need to spend that money to get the schools back in shape.
Right.
So we found that from that survey.
We got to do something with it,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
We got to do something. What do we got? Time for a clip? Is that what you're looking for, John? 2 minutes left. 2 minutes? We got 2 minutes, so we don't have time for a clip. Nope. I wanted to run that clip. My God. See, Joe, you took up the whole time. It's unbelievable how we can go, two Pawtucket guys can go for an hour without any music or entertainment or other guests, and we can...
Love
we can,
Pawtucket.
Yeah.
Worked here my whole life, and
Now, you were at Slater how
I was
many
at
years?
Slater Junior High School, or Slater Middle School for 33 years.
33 years?
Yeah. First as a teacher, and the last 8 years as an assistant principal.
Wow. Which is a tough job. That's got to be the worst job.
Well, you know what? I really enjoyed it.
Did you?
I had a great time with the kids. I've had many opportunities to leave Slater. I love the kids over there. It was a great experience with those kids. And I run into them all the time.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I taught social studies early on. I taught math for many years. But being vice principal was interesting. You know, some of these kids have gone I've seen kids who have gone a long way, have done really well in life.
But
That's great to see.
I think of the vice principal and I see the disciplinarian. I see the...
I was a disciplinarian. I had a great setup with the principal, was Mary Caswell. We started teaching together. We both retired
Who
together.
who now?
Mary Caswell.
Mary Caswell. Related to? Was she related to?
Larry?
Larry?
That was her husband.
Are you kidding?
Oh, no. It's her husband.
Really?
Yeah, Mary was from, it was Mary Stanley. She was on Bloomfield Street in Pawtucket.
Oh my God! In my area.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is it Bloomfield? Bloodgood. No, yeah, Bloomfield.
Oh no, that's over the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Her husband passed away about 3 or 4 years ago now. But she was a great principal. We had a great relationship together with the kids and stuff, and it was nice.
Wow.
Had a great time.
That's crazy.
Great school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went there for almost a year. When I got thrown out of St. Mary's for fighting in the 7th grade, and I ended up in the 7-1s. I finished the 7th grade over there, and then they changed the Mother Superior at
St. Mary's?
St. Mary's, and I was allowed to go back. And I finished the 8th and 9th grade at St. Mary's. And I said, I've had enough of the Catholic school. I'm going to a public school, and I went to Pawtucket West, which, by the way, now is Shea High School, named after a kid's father who I started the 1st grade with.
Charlie Shea?
Phil Shea.
Oh, well, it's named after Charlie Shea,
It's named after Charlie Shea. Phil Shea's his son.
former superintendent of schools in Pawtucket.
Exactly. He was the superintendent at the time.
He hired me as a teacher.
Did he really?
I was hired back in 1976.
Wow. Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Well, Joe, thanks for spending
My
an
pleasure.
hour with Bob. It was a ball.
My pleasure.
Good job. Good job. Two Pawtucket guys, folks. And I hope you enjoyed spending an hour with Bob and Joe.